But to understand the initiation of the glial cells and the brain cells, we have to work with the spine. And the spine becomes very central in this. All of the muscles, so that whole shortening is through the whole body, but that is through the spine as well. All the muscles, the whole length of the spine, they're joining into the intercostal muscles, they're connecting to the different vertebrae, and they're all shortening on the in-breath, and that is condensing the spine top to bottom on the in-breath and lengthening it. So there's this expansion out to the sides and in different directions, but within the spine, that expansion is caused by a central contraction. And as soon as you become aware of that movement in the spine, as soon as you become aware of it shortening top to bottom on the in-breath and lengthening top to bottom on the out-breath, you have to become aware of the brain and the glial cells, because they activate each other. The breath in the spine activates the glial cells in the brain, and it can become arduous if you don't include both. So this shortening top to bottom through the spine, that activates through the whole cranium, and it actually activates into the glial cells, the brain cells, and they are floating in fluid. It's an aqueous environment, they have tentacles, there's plenty of room, and it activates so their own internal musculature. It's as if they've got muscles of their own. They start opening and closing with the breath, and this activates those cells to breathe. And this basic underlying principle in holographic breathing that activates the brain to breathe, or the brain cells to breathe, I think that is what saved my life. I was literally dying of neurological Lyme's disease, and with every breath in holographic breathing I could feel it going through the brain. I could feel the cells breathing and detoxifying, and my life slowly started coming back. So that background movement and breath, even if it wasn't conscious, as we're doing today, that background breathing of the glial cells is a bit like doing aerobics for your brain. It was starting to heal that area, because Lyme disease is terrible. There's these little spirochetes, and they burrow into the meninges around the brain, so it becomes tight, so the brain can't breathe so well, and that affects the lungs very strongly. Burrows into the myelinating glial cells, destroys that, into the neurons. That's why people go downhill very quickly with Lyme's disease, or start shaking, because it destroys the nervous system. And it's literally, my brain breathing was bringing health into that area, and along with now make my own homeopathic remedies along with homeopathy, I got my life back. I can't say that I'm full of vigor like I was before, but you know, I caught Lyme's disease 25 years ago now, and rather than being dead, I'm all right. So the spine activates that. Now let me just show you a spine again. If you understand it, great. If you don't understand it, just looking at my little models will help. And we're going to finish on this bit and just go more into the birth experience and looking at the dynamics of that. But I just want to get this shortening and lengthening, because that is primary. The expansion of the body is secondary, because the expansion is being caused by the contraction. So the contraction is primary, and that is what's causing the expansion. It's a shortening of the muscles through the whole body that is causing the expansion through everything. And when you get that through the spine, it activates the brain. And I think this also is very strong in tiredness diseases. Just the brain being able to breathe and ventilate itself. Oops. So here we have my version of a spine. Oops. It's all twisted up. You've got the vertebrae with the discs between it. Let's get a skull. So that's sitting. So all of the muscles of the breath, they're coming up to the mastoid process here, to the hyoid bone here. All the muscles at the back are coming up here, and to the temporal bones. They're all pulling down on the in-breath to lift the ribs. The diaphragm is dropping. That's pulling the esophagus down, pulling the jaw down. The esophagus carries on up, and it becomes, I can't remember the word, but it joins to the underside of the cranium here. So as the diaphragm's pulling down, it's pulling down directly into what I call the balance bone. I'll show you that in that area there. And that is also making that. So you've got all of those muscles with the breath pulling the cranium or the skull down onto the spine. And then between all of the vertebrae, you've got discs, which are cartilage with fluid between them. So to a certain extent, as all of those muscles are contracting and pulling the cranium down, breathing in, the spine shortens. Breathing out, the spine lengthens. So you get this breathing in, breathing out. And whether you understand it or not doesn't matter. Just watching that image, something happens. I feel the energy go through the group when I show that particular image. Breathing in. It's very breathing out. What is the word when it's fluid? Hydraulic almost. Breathing in, breathing out. So that is, and all of the muscles from all around, they're all playing into here. The jaw moves. Something about you let, whoops, the jaws and the face, the whole thing's fallen off. I tried to open the jaw and the whole face fell off. As the jaw opens in holographic breathing, this somehow engages all of those muscles to work through the whole face and cranium. And that just all, as it's pulling down on the spine with the movement of holographic breathing, that works through the whole face and everything. Breathing in, breathing out. But there's this shortening top to bottom. I'll show it without the face. Breathing in, breathing out. The spine shortens with it. So I'm going to take this apart just to show you a couple of dynamics of the, so it's happening, and in birth, oh, let me put the face back on 1 minute. If you think of it, in birth, the baby is inside the uterus is shortening top to bottom. There's only one thing that stretches from the top of the baby to the bottom of the baby, and that is the spine. That is the only thing that's in the way of that baby just being squashed into a blub, is the spine. And when the baby's coming through, its head naturally tucks down, which is straightening the neck. The pelvis is tucked under, which is straightening the lower back. So it straightens the whole spine through the breath of the mother and the contractions. Every time she breathes, every time that, or contraction, between contractions, contraction, between contractions, and this is ventilating and exercising the whole spine, the vertebrae, the discs, the neural tissue, and this is relating into the brain, and it's relating through the neural tissue of the brain. Contraction, space between the contractions, and it's strongly being imprinted into the baby because the contractions are so strong. It's like the contractions are imprinting life and breath into the baby, breathing. And then with the diaphragm, the baby's the other way up obviously, but diaphragm's pushing down on the pelvis, the head is pushing either into the cervix or the vulva. So as the mother's breathing in, the baby breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, and that's interacting into the baby's own breathing mechanism. So I'm going to take the face off now. I'm going to take this apart. Okay, so for cranial practitioners, we're going to diverge a bit here. And again, I'm not dogmatic. However people want to see it is fine. In cranial, at least how I was taught, everything revolves around this junction here. And this is called the sphenoid, and this is called the occiput. In holographic breathing, the fulcrum is very clearly with the spine here, where the condyles are. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. So this is the fulcrum. The fulcrum isn't so much at the sphenobasilar junction. The fulcrum is here. It's a physical thing. It's pulling down in both directions and pushing up there. And the two shortest and thinnest points are just in front of the condyles. So that helps. Breathing in, bowing this way, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And in holographic breathing there is the movement between all of the bones, but because it's physical, there's also an interosseous movement through the bones. In an adult, well, anyone over the age of 13, this is one solid bone. So in all of us, this is one solid bone. In a baby, the biggest joint is here. This is fully open and a big joint. The second joint is where it's mainly bending as an adult there, which is smaller. And then the smallest joint is actually at the sphenobasilar junction. So at birth, it's 4, and it's still within holographic breathing. It's got a joint at the back that's opening. It's got a joint here that's opening. So it just increases. You've got 3 joints to help breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And they're not actually joints. They're cartilage that's melded into the bone on either side. Now, that is normally called an occiput up to there, and the sphenoid there. That doesn't fit with holographic breathing, so I've called this one bone. It's called the, I've forgotten what I called it now. I think I called it the balancing bone because it balances on the spine. And what you have is I've forgotten the bits as well. I think I called it the body at the back here, which is, it's kind of, that's the deep earth feeling. It's in the occiput at the back. And then the balance bone, which is here, around here. When you put a spine on there, it fits that balance bone. Then you've got the balance bone there. This becomes the abdomen. It's where the trachea is joining, not the trachea, the esophagus, or what the esophagus becomes is joining here. So that becomes the abdomen. This is the lungs in here, and this is the nasal passageways. This is the head, this is the wings, and these are the lungs. So you've got the legs. So you've got one bone that bends. And remember, the bones in us, they're flexible. Dead bones are brittle, but live bones, they've got a certain amount of flex. And we're dealing with minute movements, but they feel big. So breathing in, breathing out. And then to the sides of that, we've got these two lateral bones. These two lateral bones, breathing, it won't open, go on open. Breathing in, breathing out. As the muscles pull down on them and they sit down onto the spine, breathing in, breathing out. So you've got all four directions, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Again, you can just look at the pictures. You don't have to understand it. Now, how to put that together? Where's that fit? That's it. Now here, let me put this on the spine. I have to sit it on my knee. So also along with that, I'll have to hold that in place. You've got all the muscles coming up to the hyoid bone. You've got the esophagus coming up to the underside of the cranium. So with holographic breathing, you've got this whole pull down through the face, which refers through into the front of the balance bone, and you've got all of these muscles pulling into the back of the occiput there. So holographic breathing is pulling the face down and opening, pulling the back down and opening, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Now, I just wanted to show that. The information was to show that. You don't have to understand it, but I've showed it. It will go into one level or another. But you get the general idea anyway. There's a shortening and lengthening. All right, let's move into birth. So we started off just going through birth, and in the first one, let me check the time. Let me see how I'm doing with time. All right, we're all right. Not so bad. We just had one kind of going through, but we got to a certain point and everything just stopped. And there was a midwife type lady, and she said that was right. As the baby is... Okay, I'm just going to have to describe it with my hands. Oh, let's do it with a balloon. First of all, you've got the baby in the uterus, and this is the cervix. And this is opening and opening, and the baby's head is slowly coming out through here. It's not actually engaging with the pelvic floor to start off with. It's just contractions here, and this is pulling back the cervix around the baby's head, and you've got the pelvic floor here. And then at a certain stage, so let me do it on me. So you've got the cervix there, and breathing and contractions, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And the cervix is slowly opening, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. It's a fast version of birth, breathing in, breathing in, until it gets down to here, where it won't go up anymore because the pressure is directly in. And this is the first transmission. This is the first energy activation. It gets to this point, and what happens is the contractions stop. And there's this very blissful time as the hormones change from, what's it called, endorphins to endorphin-based to adrenaline-based. And in that exchange, there's an ecstatic feeling. So, and that is quite often rushed through, but we're going to just sit into that place while the cervix is wrapped around our head here. And that is an activation. It's not just the hormones that are activating. What is happening in that point for me is it activates the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thalamus. That whole third eye complex is initiated and opened while you sit into that first activation. So we'll be sitting into that first activation and just waiting there and letting that fully complete. And then when that's done, automatically, when that activation is happening, you don't have to try and get them started. The contractions start happening again, but they're stronger. It's changed. They're more now. The head is through, and it's come through the cervix, and the baby's head is now starting in the vagina and starting to press into the vulva. If you push here, let's throw that balloon away. Don't say I don't go out of my way for you. So the white balloon is the diaphragm of the mother and the abdomen of the mother, and the pink balloon is the uterus, and you got the breath of the mother breathing in. See how they align? Breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Now, and then you get the contractions, breathing in and holding, but within that you still got breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out of the mother, slowly working as you get these big long contractions and then spaces in between. But to start off with, you don't want to push, because the baby needs to have its head out of the cervix into the vagina and pressing into the vulva. And then at that stage you need something behind the uterus, so as when the contractions happen, if something's behind it, then the baby gets expelled out through the vagina. So you can hold into. That is when we start working with the lengthways breath, is in this stage, and that automatically opens the baby through the vagina and through the cervix, through the vulva. My brain's gone. I don't know if I'm making sense. Halfway through, so there's that connection to the vulva. The energy changes. The energy in the uterus is the fire circuit. So there's that energy as we're working with the initial energy. Sorry, I keep looking at what people are writing. So the uterus has got the fire energy. When you drop down into the vagina, this is a much stronger blue energies. It's a hara for the blue energy. The energy changes, and then when you come to the vulva, it's changed again. So there's an initiation halfway through the cervix. There's kind of initiation when the head is making more contact with the vulva. And then, I don't know if it's in birth, but when the same as, but the baby, it's two births really. The baby is being born out of the uterus and through the cervix, and then it's being birthed again through the vulva, and halfway out in the same time when you've got the vulva wrapped around, we're going to wait there, and this is another initiation that again initiates the third eye, the thalamus, the whole third ventricle and pineal, that whole area. It's an initiation. So we're going to wait there for a little bit of time, allow that initiation. See, it's not a real birth. We don't have to hurry. We can hang out in the initiations that we may not have got in our original birth, or not for a long time. As now I think a lot of the more new age midwives, they kind of get the mothers to hang out in the spaces, so it's not just a full-on go, you know, hang out between the contractions, sleep between the contractions, hang out in these natural spaces, so it's not this rush to the end. Enjoy the whole journey of it. Now, if mothers were to do holographic breathing, they wouldn't be in pain. All of the mothers who have learned holographic breathing for birth feel little to no pain. And I think it's because, and when I taught it to mothers and they're pregnant, they say the baby knows what they're doing. First of all, they can feel it getting excited, and then they say it just relaxes and drops deep down into their uterus. So the babies already kind of know it. I think this is how babies breathe in the womb. But when mothers use holographic breathing, there is no pain, so, or little pain. They say taken down by about 70%, or is just ecstatic. There's no pain. So in that scenario, it becomes much easier to sit in, and they're more comfortable, so sit into these initiations. Then naturally the contractions are stopping, and you come out through the vulva and it's down to your shoulders. So now that longitudinal motion that was from the head to the pelvis has gone. It's now from the shoulders to the pelvis, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. Before, it was initiating the brain. The first lengthways breathing was initiating the brain, and those two initiations were initiating the third eye, all the hormones, the thalamus, the pineal gland, all that pituitary gland, that whole area comes down to the shoulders. Now it's from the shoulders to the pelvis, breathing in, breathing out, breathing out. This initiates the lungs. This brings the breath into the lungs. And in that place, get my pelvis out. I don't know why I've got the pelvis out. All right. When the baby's being born, its face comes round into the sacrum. So the back of the head is facing to the pubic arch. The face is into the sacrum. So the back of the head coming out first like this, and then the shoulders are sideways. They're here and here, and they can't come out because the bones are in the way. So what happens is the baby has to turn one way or the other. So it turns, and now the shoulder can come under the pubic arch here. So it turns from the shoulders being sideways to the shoulders being lengthways, and the first shoulder can come under there, and then once that shoulder's out, the second shoulder can come out through from the sacrum, and then once the shoulders are out, the baby can be just delivered. Now again, don't rush to the breath. We're going to wait, we're going to rest, and for the mother and the baby. And this is the next initiation. The whole pressure has changed. Before that, there was this whole pressure on your chest, but as soon as you're fully out, that pressure goes. Also, the umbilical cord is getting cool, and all of the fluid in the umbilical cord, all the jelly is going solid, and that is cutting off the blood flow and the oxygen for the baby. And with this less pressure taken off, and the build up of carbon dioxide, this is the next initiation. Baby takes its first breath, breathing in, breathing out, and this from not having much oxygen because through birth the umbilical cord is getting pressed, to suddenly breathing with the lungs, the whole lungs opening, all the capillaries in the lungs opening, the flow of the blood into the lungs opening. There's a big change. The placenta is part of the baby, and it's been feeding blood, oxygen, nutriment back and forth between the baby. The placenta is not part of the mother. The placenta is part of the baby. The blood that is flowing back and forth to the placenta is being pumped by the baby's heart. So in the womb, you're in this sac, and that sac is the extension of the placenta. The fluid inside that sac has come out from the baby. The blood flow from the baby's heart is going to the placenta. The carbon dioxide, toxins are flowing out through the placenta into the mother. Then the oxygen, nutriments are coming back into the placenta, and it's the baby's heart that is pumping that blood back to its heart and then round the body. So the placenta is part of the baby. The placenta in the womb is part of your anatomy. It's your friend. And when you come out, suddenly that friend, that part of you, a whole bit like losing your abdomen and lungs or something, suddenly isn't there. You're not just activating the breath, you're moving from one world to another. You're moving from breathing from the placenta to breathing with your lungs and the breath. And so it's a big change, it's a big initiation. And we're going to spend time getting used to that change. And then when that's ready, we'll start working our way to our own breast. We start breastfeeding. Breastfeeding, holographic breathing, is just like a subtle form of breastfeeding. So the next activation activates the digestion. Well, it connects the heart of the mother back to the heart of the baby, but it also initiates the hara, the abdomen, the digestion. Before that, you were dependent on the placenta and the blood of the mother. That is dying. That is dropping away. You're being reborn from the placenta to a new life. And you're still connected to the mother. The food is still coming from the mother, but through your mouth rather than through your navel. This is another initiation. It activates the hara. It activates your earth, your connection to the earth. It activates your digestion, activates all the organs. This is another initiation. So we're going to sit into that initiation. And then finally, the last initiation through this whole thing, we've been the mother and baby together through this birth. We are the mother giving birth to ourselves as the baby. We merge back into one. And this is the final initiation. So that is what we're going to do.